Morning, folks, and in case you're wondering why I said good morning instead of good afternoon, I did my level best to do this lecture yesterday afternoon in class, but I just frankly did not have enough internet to get it done. So this is try number 2 that I am going through right now. The whole point of today's lecture, and give me just a second, and I want to bring this into the rest of the class, is number one, we're dealing with imagery a lot in this class. The next thing is that this imagery that we want to get and manipulate, get some answers from, we're also going to take that the next step, and we're actually going to harden some boundaries on a field. And well, I don't have you all in a classroom in front of a computer, and we can't literally, by God, do this. I'm going to show you some of the things that need to happen in order to create a set of, inside of cyberspace, I guess, hardened boundaries that we can take into the equipment that we're using to do all of these farming operations with. Anyhow, I wanted to start you with one website today that just gives you a almost unlimited amount of information, and I wanted to take you folks to Web Soil Survey. Just type Web Soil Survey into your search engine. It's going to take you right there. Go ahead and whack that green button, and it's going to get the program started. And oh dear Lord, last night I was dealing with wow, the internet was just taking so long. It was unbelievable. I had my browser open this morning, and it's probably taken me to a map I was fiddling with. Yours is probably going to take you to just a map of the United States, and you'll see some state boundaries on there. If you'll give me just a second here, I am going to, hang on here. Sorry about that interruption. I got my screen organized a little bit better the way I want it. So hopefully you've kind of fiddled with that map just a little bit by now. Really, I just wanted to get this open so you folks can look at it. We're going to come back to this in a second, and I kind of want to toggle back and forth in between a couple of different ways to gather up some imagery to look at. The next thing I'd like you to do is go ahead and grab Google Earth Pro, and that one's going to start up right there. It may have a pop-up you need to get rid of. This is kind of the normal startup for Google Earth Pro. You have a couple of options open to you right now. First of all, you could go up to the left, and you can type in a straight up address. I wanted to show you just some of the functionality of Google Earth Pro if you haven't really messed with this. So I'm going to type in 500 Posick Way. I typed in the school's address there. So you can see it dropped a red address marker that's going to look a little bit like what you've got on your cell phone going on. So yeah, there we showed up at campus right there. Here's a couple of the things that we can kind of use as far as functionality goes on this. So there we are in that building right there. A couple of the toys we can play with. So first of all, let's grab that one right there. So that's a place mark. Let's just put Tech Center building. Cool. And I can go ahead. I'm going to have to open that up. I'm going to have to edit it, because I didn't move it before. Actually, I'm just going to delete that one. Let's grab another one. It's a lot easier if you move it. So that about right there at the end of the building is my office right there. So that's going to be my office this time. Also on that, understand I can change the opacity, I can change the size, the view of it, the altitude. I can edit what I'm doing with that pen quite a bit right there. So I'm just going to go okay, and we're going to drop it. Here's another thing I want to show you really quick that's going to make your life a whole bunch easier if you are using Google Earth Pro to help with some of the things you're looking for. Please go up to that Tools tab and go down to Options. I already had mine set up this morning. Yours wouldn't have been that way to start with, but it has a bunch of these default settings. So when we're looking at GPS coordinates, back in the day when sailboats were floating around out in the ocean, we used hours, minutes, and seconds for GPS coordinates. For the large part, we've kind of got away from the minutes and seconds, and we're going with decimals. So if you click on that, you were probably set up right there with with degrees, minutes, seconds. Go up to decimal degrees, and then just apply it and hit OK. What that's going to do is it'll give you your GPS coordinates in a way that we can kind of cut and paste over into other things pretty easy. While we're talking about GPS coordinates, if you look down in the lower right hand side of your screen, if you move your mouse, it'll give you a set of GPS coordinates for where you're at down there. Just another real quick thing, if I go back over to my places over here, and I've got that one, I can open that up and look at the properties of it, and I can get my latitude and longitude numbers right there. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Here's some of the other functionality. If I was a super lazy guy and I wanted to know how far of a walk it is for me to get over to the bookstore, I can go up here and grab this path icon. And again, we can edit what the colors are, how opaque it's going to be. So if I start at my office, I can draw a path there, walk down the sidewalk. I'm going to turn right there and walk over here to that set of doors. Then I can go over and I can look at some of the measurements that are going on. So that's a 0.17 mile walk. That doesn't mean much to me, so I can go ahead and toggle that, turn it into feet. That's 900 feet right there. For somebody who's actually doing something serious, we can either do a path, or here's another one, grab the ruler, and if I want to do a line, a path, a polygon, something like that, this is my measuring device. But if I wanted to lay a new main line in that field right there, out to the center of the field, I can do a measurement right there, and why it's in centimeters is beyond me, but let's go to feet. 466 feet. That gives me a pretty quick tool to figure out how much pipe do I need to buy, or how much trench do I need to dig right there. Go ahead and clear that. Here's another kind of neat little bit of functionality. So let's measure how many acres are in, we'll go to Polygon. Let's measure how many acres a softball field is. And then it's going to get a little bit more difficult to go around the home run fence. And then when you're done, double click it, and that sets your polygon. We can go back, so it gave me the perimeter right there, gave me the area. Square meters means absolutely 0 to me. Let's go down to acres, and I've got 0.87 acres in the softball field right there. You can save it or clear it. If you save it like this, go ahead and name it. Okay, and then it's going to drop it in your places over here on side of your side navigator right here. So I've got the softball field marked out there. Here's some of the other things. Maybe I should have shown you the first. These wheels over here help you drive. This is going to change the angle of the view you're looking at. It's always going to start with north up. You can certainly zoom in that way. You might have to go ahead and change your angles if you start zooming in. Another thing you can do is you can grab it. It's got functionality like that. If I were to go out to the road right here, and I don't know if this imagery is going to be set up this way, I can grab my street view guy, drop him on there, and we'll find, nope, we've not had a little Google Earth car come through campus. That's actually kind of interesting where you're going to get this enhanced imaging from. If I can just back out a little bit, let's go over to that intersection that everybody just loves on campus in the morning. Let's see if we can get some of that street view imaging there, and there we go. So a lot of times there's some pretty cool functionality to look at. You can drive around, check things out, look things over a little bit, see what tractors they've got going on at John Deere. Okay, so you can drive that around, zoom it around a little bit. What other functionality? Oh, okay, let's go back here. And I want to go there. Show you some other kind of neat functionality. So if I go up, I can grab this timestamp icon. And what that does is this is going to take you back through some of the previous imagery that Google has gathered up. So the most recent imagery they've got is showing from 2019. We can slide back there to 16. And look at how things are different. Well, we've still got a softball field. There's a few things a little bit different. Let's slide back to 2012. Yeah, they've done a pretty good job of mowing the grass. Let's take a further jump back. And great, here's a great example of it. So what the deal is if I go back up to just grab one of those images, the way Google Earth is actually putting this together is they've got these enormous computer programs that are gathering pictures from satellites. It doesn't even have to be their satellites. And these computer programs are what they call clipping GPS coordinates within that image somewhere. So it's pairing a GPS coordinate with an image. These computer programs can start grabbing pictures that have been taken surrounding a given GPS coordinate, and then the computer takes over and starts building this composite image. And it might actually be from, like tens of images mashed together, and the borders don't necessarily click together like puzzle pieces, but we're grabbing multiple images of the same thing and kind of blending them together. And it might be up to thousands of images. And that's how you get this pretty high resolution put together, so we can actually, on our Google Earth page, drill down, and I mean close enough that we can start making out make and model of cars. We can certainly tell how good of a job they've done cutting the grass, all sorts of stuff like that. But compare that to what we get when we go back to 1996. This is obviously just aerial photography. This was taken from, you don't want to call it a spy plane, but very high altitude plane with a pretty good camera on it. And this is probably the representation of one picture. Maybe Google found a couple of them and blended it together from actual by God pictures that they may not have even had the digital file of. You go back to like 1985, and we've probably not even got enough resolution to get a very decent picture, even at this altitude. See, we've got to back out before we can even start making sense of what's actually going on here. The resolution on the pictures just gets poorer and poorer as you get older. But again, if we take it up to a little bit closer to the modern day, we can see what's going on here pretty good. Okay, that was kind of a walkthrough of some of the functionality that has quite a bit of meaning for us. Actually, I'll do this a different way. So, because I wanted to show you some different stuff going on in the soil and the fields that the college owns right next to campus, they're kind of boring, frankly. So what I'm going to do is drive you up Mill Creek Road, and let's go to a field that Joe and Debbie Frazier, I have no idea if they own it, but I know they farm it. So I got to cut weed on this field last summer. Just to show you a couple of kind of neat things, I'm going to go grab another GPS pin. And I need to get that out of the way. Matt Williams gave me a really good way to start into this. Grab your pin, and for whatever works for you, Matt told me, go drop that pin in the northwest corner of a field, and I thought, okay, that makes pretty good sense. Let me just get rid of that, and I'll put Frazier. Okay, so if I go back down to my temporary places, I don't know where Frazier, there it is. So I can look at the properties of that. And what I'm after is those GPS coordinates right there. So now I want to take you to back to Web Soil Survey. I am going to copy my latitude, and this is just a little bit cumbersome, but instead of messing around and trying to drive this map off of Web Soil Survey, which for me I find a little bit more cumbersome, a little bit slower than Google Earth Pro, because believe it or not, there is an incredibly huge amount, millions of times more data associated with these maps than what you got off of Google Earth Pro. But if I go to latitude and longitude, I can paste the first part of my coordinates in there, drop a comma, I'll run back here, grab my longitude, copy that, I can drop it in there, and here's where I always get messed up. If you click on that button right there, it takes you to your current location, so that actually takes me right back to campus where my computer's sitting right now, so that isn't helping me. But I can hit view, and there it is. So now I just have to drive my map a little bit. Again, just the functionality differences. If you want to drag your map around, you got to go grab your pan hand right there, and it's going to help you. And right there, sorry, it's not a real great color. It's kind of orange right there. It's going to show you those GPS coordinates, and that's pretty close to what we plugged into Google Earth Pro. My point came back. If I can just toggle back and forth and compare the imagery that we're getting there. Let me hit OK. This is a lot better imagery, and I can make it a whole bunch better than that. However, let's get into the functionality, what's going on over here with Web Soil Survey. The first thing I'd like you folks to be able to do is, this is just a little bit of terminology, but define an area of interest What that's doing is if you just ask for a soil survey right here, it's going to give you half of the county, and that's going to take too long and really isn't helping you do anything. But if I want to just look at one field in particular, I can go ahead and define an area of interest. So I'm going to go back to that point. I'm going to start there, come down here, and this allows me to just kind of trace around the field. So we've got some outground there that we're not going to farm. That's just a really steep little canyon right there. And then when you get it shaped up the way you want it, just double click on it. So if I can get my camera out of the way a little bit, what it's done is now we have painted something that we're only looking inside of this part of the map. The first thing I would love to do with you is let's go up to that soil map tab. And given a second here, it's actually going to load with our different soil types. So now you can scroll down up. We're going to have to ask some better questions, but that gave me soil types. I didn't necessarily get what I wanted right there, so let's go to the Soil Data Explorer. Once you get on that soil map tab, it'll open that up for you. Now then, I have a crazy amount of functionality at my fingertips. That just brought the exact same map over. And by the way, there's a super easy way you can just whack a button right up there on that printable version and it'll start creating a report for you. Super handy if you're doing something like sending jobs out to, let's say you'd hired Nutrien to do the spraying for you. Gives Nutrien all sorts of a chance to make sure they got in the right field. If they're doing variable rate application for you, they're probably going to get quite a bit of the information they're out of just from this. If you put together a couple of these pretty simple reports, there's all sorts of cool stuff to look at. We're not necessarily talking about putting up buildings today. We're all farmers in this, so construction material, disaster recovery planning, that isn't doing much for us. But we can go into land classifications, and there's all sorts of cool stuff there. Let's go down to farmland classification. We're going to get some decent information out of this. So it's asking you what kind of a report do you want to build? Do you want a map? Do you want tables in it? And do you want descriptions of those ratings? I always would encourage you to click on that detailed description. Then you can go back up there and click on view rating. Painted a different map for us right there. You're going to see the huge similarities in between, obviously, what your soil type map shows and what all this other information is going to give you. But you can keep scrolling down. And now I've got my Athena silt loam, and that's the fairly flat stuff. This is pretty steep. That's getting, really kind of steep. It'll give you a rating, tell you how many acres are within that area of interest that you defined, and then just give you a percentage of it. You keep scrolling down a little bit, it starts telling you what this ground is suitable for and what these different ratings mean on that one. So that one's kind of cool. Let's go to non-irrigated capability class. Take a look at that. I want the detailed one. It's going to give me a new map. Looks a little bit different, but I can roll down here and it's going to give me a rating, and I've got somewhere between 2 and 6 down there. Start reading there. 2, that has moderate limitations. That's going to reduce choice plants, and we got to do some conservation practices. You go clear up to 6, and that's, in this example, it's saying that is really steep ground. It's good soil. They're even saying they're doubting our ability to farm it, but I think Joe Frazier has something else to say about that. Soil moisture class. Some other pretty good information one could gather there. again, so it says it's xeric, and then it's going to tell you what xeric means and basically how much water holding capacity it's got. You might be interested in the vegetative productivity. So this is where you're going to go to get answers like, can I grow wine grapes there? I'm going to say the answer is yes, because the field next door is actively doing it now. A lot of folks and banks are actually going to want to look at the crop productivity index. Yeah, I want it detailed. Oh, here's a good example for you. So Walla Walla County is not perfect in the amount of data that it has available to it. This means that somebody hasn't got around to attaching that data to that set of GPS coordinates. And you're just kind of out of luck there. If you go to the Midwest, that isn't happening. Those folks have got this kind of taken care of. Land management, what have we got? Rangeland seeding, tells you best practices for doing that. Another cool little tool is I can close all those up and get back to where I wanted to be. Okay, range production on a normal year. So we got a little bit different looking map. So because I'm a cattle guy and I'd always be interested in how much grass is it going to grow. Here's another example of where data may not be perfect. I know I'm asking you folks to just believe some stuff about coming from me, but I think I can pass a straight face test pretty good if I say that is some of the finest dryland farm ground in the nation right there, and it's about 3 miles from campus. You come down here and look at it, it gives you your soil types with what your slopes are, and then it gives you how many pounds per year of forage do you think is there that would be usable, because they're going to save some back for organic matter return and all that good stuff. And they're telling me it'll grow 1,100 pounds of forage per acre on a normal year. So you can also click on unfavorable or favorable years. I'm looking at that and going, it can grow more cheatgrass than that a year, let alone if I had something pretty nice planted in there. So, yeah, not so much. So there's a lot of the things that we're going to deal with very quickly. I'm going to take you back and just show you something very quickly. So if I go back to the area of interest tab up here, might take it just a second. This is going to come up again in a little bit, and some of you folks may not have played with this very much, but I can create an area of interest from a shape file, or I can create an area of interest from a zipped shape file. What that is doing is, for example, if you had been out with your combine and harvested the wheat off of this, that combine now is going to have the yield data attached to what it did in that field. I am now able to bring that data back and drop it in there. And it's just going to ask you to choose a file, and then you're going to have to go through all the typical steps of where's that file coming from, and have you got it on a zip drive, or is it out in the cloud somewhere, whatever the case may be. I can drop that data inside of there. And again, that's just giving me another layer of the map like we were going over a minute ago. That's also going to help me start doing some stuff like defining actual and even legal boundaries within these fields. Again, banks find it very helpful. So leaving that aside, this is where we're going to start creating boundaries on fields to start helping us with our actual farming operations. If I've got these boundaries clipped in, that's the highly untechnical term that they use in a lot of this farm management software. If I have that done, that allows me to start, I can make 27 layered maps if I want to, including all of the yield data. I can export all of the soil data out of Web Soil Survey into these programs that are helping me do variable rate farming. So I just wanted to take a half a second to explain that. The last thing I was going to visit with you today is I will be putting an assignment up, and it's pretty simple. I want you folks to get on Google Earth Pro, and I'm going to do that one because it just makes it so easy. I want you to find a field, and hopefully it's a field that you have some sort of personal connection to. If not, find one and then give me a reason why you picked that field. Some of you folks are going to grab a center pivot, some of you a big dryland wheat field, whatever the case may be. I would like you to find a field, and I'll click over to Google Earth Pro. I want you to do a couple of things for me. Under Google Earth Pro, I want you to throw a polygon in, which is basically going to allow you to set up the boundaries on a field. And that is pretty cool. Did you folks see how that line was starting to adapt on its own? Pretty neat stuff right there. The other thing that you may not necessarily be recognizing, or you wouldn't be able to necessarily see from this image right here, is there's actually some pretty significant ridges right there and canyons. And while that line does not look straight to you and I, it actually is. That line's running on a perfect east-west. Anyways, I want you to be able to define a polygon, and then I want you to screenshot it, go to the measurements part, and I want to see how many acres are in that field. Please name your field, and I want a screenshot of you naming that. Also, I want another screenshot with a GPS peg put in there to give me some GPS coordinates to work with. And then the last part of the assignment is I'm going to ask you to take me back to Web Soil Survey, give me the same boundaries around the field, and so what I'm saying is define your area of interest on that field, and then I would like a screenshot with your soil map shown on that. So that's going to be the assignment. It's just going to be a series of screenshots put in. Thank you, folks, and probably next time we're going to start working on a little bit of that FarmWorks software. Appreciate your time.